Welcome to the Goal Achievers Podcast, where we interview the most preeminent business experts, authors, and speakers in their field of expertise and provide you with the specialized knowledge needed to achieve your goals. Now, here is your host, author, founder of Goal Achievers International, and one of the top speakers agents in the industry, serving over 5,000 events and meeting planners worldwide. Please welcome Phil R. Taylor.
Great. Well, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of the Goal Achievers Podcast. We're so delighted that you've taken some time from your day to join us to learn and grow and be inspired. And today we have a very, very special guest with us by the name of Chet W. Sisk, who is a futurist, author, speaker, and founder of Universal Basic Resources. Yes. Chet spends most of his time analyzing the latest trends through data, conversations, and observation. He provides consultation about the immediate future for companies, individuals, and various organizations. Chet has traveled to over 30 countries around the world, provided a keynote at the United Nations, holds workshops at Fortune 500 companies, and has written several books on personal and corporate change. His keynotes and workshops combine personal experience, humor, incredible stories from his travels, and definitive predictions on what's going to happen to us over the next few years and why. And that is so very fascinating. And Chet, welcome to the Goal Achievers Podcast.
Thank you so much, Phil. It is a pleasure and an honor to be with you. Thank you for letting me share this time with your audience. And thank you for that very nice introduction. Nice.
Oh, well, I'm at the edge of my seat because I want to know what's going on for 2024 and beyond. And many of us do as well. And what better way to start off the new year than with thoughts on this subject?
Absolutely. I mean, this is futurist season.
Oh, so, yes.
Yeah. Every futurist is being squeezed to make predictions for 2024 right about now. I must admit, I've kind of backed away from the predictions space. It's a little, it's sexy, you know. It gets people's attention and all of that. But I'll provide some predictions in this time we share together. But I primarily like to say, trends. My focus is about how are we trending? Because the trends that we see, that we experience, are really decisions. They're collective decisions. And those decisions, like everything else, can be changed. We can change our minds about stuff.
Right.
So it offers an opportunity for us to stop and say, there's something else we can do. And so I like to say, I think that sometimes predictions locks us into these spaces where we're like, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
But if you say, we're following a trend, and trends are decisions, that means everything could change if we decide to change our minds about things. So
interesting. Okay.
Yes.
So I had a whole bunch of questions for you, and you just touched on the topic of trends.
Yes.
Which is a big topic right there in and that of itself. But let's back up a little bit, because you are a futurist. You did touch on that. Could you explain to the rest of us what a futurist is, really?
Yes. Now, I'll say this: there's not really a futurist school. So for those of you who are sitting back going, "Oh, I'll get my degree in futurism," it doesn't exist.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
But I think that we are people who come from different disciplines. Like I'm a former television news anchor and journalist and reporter. And so what I did was that I took the same skills that I learned in journalism and applied them to trends outside of a 24 or 48-hour news cycle. So excuse me. I had some peanut butter cookies.
That's all good. Here, Chet, have some water, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I swear, it's so funny. But it's people in different disciplines applying those disciplines to what we believe to be things that will happen in the near future or the far future.
Okay.
I am not one of those people who looks at like 50 years from now, we'll have flying cars.
Right.
My primary focus is on what decisions or trends are we in right now that will affect everything in the next year or two?
Okay.
So I'm much more immediate based.
Right.
And that's how I define my futurism, is that it really is focused around the next couple of years and the
Excellent.
trends that got us there.
Okay.
So every definition of futurism, you ask 50 futurists
Yeah.
what it is, and you'll get 50 different answers. But
Yeah.
I would say that it's those of us who are focused, who are forward thinking enough to say, this is what we believe is going to happen based around the data that exists. And we use our different disciplines in order to decipher, if you will,
Mm.
that data and hopefully come up with some actionable items and answers for people listening.
Tremendous. Well, as you know, the name and the theme of this podcast is Goal Achievers.
Mm,
And Goal Achievers, what can we anticipate from, let's say, a business standpoint? There's so many dynamics, elements, there's the environment, but purely from a
yeah,
business standpoint,
yeah.
to keep on top of our game and keep ahead of the game, so to speak. What are you seeing developing and
Yeah.
for us to be in touch with?
It is, I
Yeah.
can tell you 2024 is going to be a rocking year. I
Wow.
mean,
Yeah.
in the sense that it's going to be extremely dynamic.
Yeah.
Probably more so, I can't think of a year that even compares to the level of dynamism that exists
Right.
going into 2024. Who knows? It might settle
Exciting.
down later,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
right now, going into this year,
Yeah.
we have a lot of things in flux.
Right.
Um, of course, climate crisis. I would say 2023 turned out to be the hottest year on record.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So 2024 will
Really?
probably surpass that simply because of the El Nino effect that's still in effect for right now.
Okay.
Now that may change over the next few months, but
Yeah.
right now, as long as El Nino is in place, it takes all of the scary parts of climate change and extends them or
Wow.
exaggerates them because of the fact that it's an effect where there's a warming of water. For those of you who don't know about El Nino, it's a warming of water around the equator that
Wow.
affects the rest of the weather in the world.
Wow.
And so we have these warm temperatures, and then you have El Nino in effect, and it gives a steroid shot to the heat that we already are experiencing because of climate change. So
Wow.
we're definitely going to have and you can count on it. You can definitely count on that. From you heard it here first, folks.
Okay. All
We're
right.
gonna we're gonna
It's on
have some.
record.
It's on
It's on
record.
record.
There will be some extreme weather events
Okay.
of scale that will happen around the world, and it will bring our attention. Of course, we'll sit back and we'll say, "Oh boy, this is happening." And it's affecting the world, and people will get outraged and people will get scared. I'm not quite sure if that's going to lead to more action on our part, but it definitely is going to create a more tense environment. And I don't know if you know this, Phil, but
Mm.
being a climate, I've had to study climate crisis. One
Wow.
of the things that we found out is that warmer temperatures does produce more violence.
Really? Wow.
Yes, it people get to the place they either the you would think that the heat would make people just go and grab a
Wow.
cup of tea and lay in the shade, but it
Yeah.
tends to create more angst, more anger.
Really? Okay.
So we may see some correlating violence that goes along with the warmer
Wow.
temperatures, and so that is a part of definitely 2024. Look out for that.
Okay.
Um, I think we're going to have some challenges in this country around politics.
Yeah.
No matter who wins, there
Yeah.
will be people who will be very sour about who wins.
Yeah.
So if their guy doesn't win, it doesn't mean that they go home, they take their ball and go home.
Right.
These guys may sit back and say, well, I don't accept your results,
Right.
and we're going to, throw a temper tantrum. And
Right.
then it becomes
Right.
becomes problematic for the country. So
Right.
that is definitely something either way. So it's not even a matter of who wins. It's a
Right.
matter of the election itself is going to produce some levels of
True.
disruption, social disruption.
Yes. Yeah.
On so everyone needs to, if as we prepare for
Yeah.
this year, we should recognize that there could be some levels of social disruption that we probably want to prepare for,
Right.
and just make sure that we, as business owners and as entrepreneurs and such, we
Yeah.
want to make sure that we know what our positions are and how we want to be forward facing in the face of social disruption.
Right.
It won't
Right.
be good to just sit back and say, well, I don't want to get involved. You want to
Right.
talk about levels
Right.
of how we can work these things out,
Right.
and lead by example. That is, lead by saying, we want to and get your materials together and your
Right.
positions together to say, we are an advocate for peace and
Hmm.
for the peaceful transition of power, and how do we make things work for everybody.
Yeah.
So it's good to be able to get those positions together now. Don't go scrambling in a period of social
Yeah.
disruption. You want to get it together now so
Yeah.
that you represent
Yeah.
peace
Yeah.
and democracy and the greater good.
Yeah.
So it's a good to get those positions together now.
Yeah.
Um, I also think that it's important for business owners and entrepreneurs to absolutely understand that there is no going back to normal when it comes to the technology. If you're thinking about, oh, these things will settle down, I'll wait on implementing AI into my infrastructure. I'll wait and see what the other guy is going to do. I'll tell you this right now. You wait for the other guy, you will get left in the dust, because
Yes.
this is really it's an
Wow.
arms race.
Yeah.
And in every discipline, in every
Yeah.
field,
Yeah.
if you are able to get the technology that allows you to really be able to expand your capacity, you should do it now. But don't do it at the haste, um, where you are just spending a bunch of money and throwing money at stuff, and you still haven't defined how you want to use the technology. Don't do that, because then
Right.
you'll regret it, and then you'll say, this tech stuff, it's just terrible.
Right.
And it's not the technology, it's us. If we don't
Yeah.
manage it well, it doesn't show up well.
Right. Right.
So and then the other thing too I'd like to emphasize is that it really becomes important, um, for us to understand that we're in a state of constant change. So
Right.
you need to partner with people who are innovators, and get
Yeah.
them to connect with you and partner with you and work with you and team with you on all kinds of different things. Because if you use the 1980s and 1990s business model, where you
Right.
created something, then you rested
Yeah.
on your laurels for
Yeah.
a few years while the cash rolled in, that model doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So you need something much more dynamic, much more innovative, more creative. And sometimes that means getting out of your comfort zone and going to people and professionals and communities that you probably wouldn't have thought about before. And some of you are going to say, yeah, that's right. And you'll give lip service to it. But I assure you, the people who will do the most kind of will have the greatest success in this environment will
Yeah.
be those who are able to get out of their comfort zones and bring in people, as opposed to keep people out.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
then one other thing that we're noticing too is, I took a course from Oxford University about the circular economy, the
Okay.
circular economy. Basically, it's saying, a lot of the challenges that we face is because we have a lot of waste in the
Right.
systems that we use.
Right.
Tremendous waste. In fact, a lot of people make their money in the margins, in that margin of waste. And they were like, well, that's not sustainable, especially in a time of
Yeah.
climate crisis. It doesn't make
Right.
any sense. But
Right.
it's legacy.
Right.
They're legacy business models, and we've been doing it for such a long time. We think it's the only way. Well, there are new models that are starting to emerge, and one of them, of course, is the one that I tend to advocate for,
Yeah.
and that is the Ubuntu model. And that is
They're
when
all
you start
connected.
to share, yes, everything and everyone is connected, and the efficiencies of connection make it better all the way around, for sustainability,
Yes.
for cost reduction, to maintain employees. Your
Yeah.
talent, your best talent, is going to
Yeah.
be looking at how you manage this kind of space. It's it's just forward thinking economics, and we don't go there yet because we're
Yeah.
still making money in the waste, but we're being forced to now because of climate crisis. So here we're now in that place where we have an opportunity to kind of forward some better models. And this
Yeah.
is that time. And I suggest that all business owners start to think about it. Don't do the lip service thing. Don't do
Right.
the, oh, yeah, we're doing this because it's good for the environment. No,
Right.
it's good for business, it's good for
Right.
society.
Right. Right.
And so the Ubuntu model, which means just, again, making sure that all things are connected, that is us.
Yeah.
We're connected. We're connected to the environment. We're
Yeah.
connected to the systems. We're connected to all of those things. So how do we make all of those things come together so that we can maximize the efficiencies of
Yeah.
connectedness, as opposed to thinking of it as a nice to have? We now have to see it as a must have.
Yeah.
But those are the things that we're seeing. We're seeing the rise of Ubuntu as a concept, and circular economy frameworks also coming into play.
Yeah.
It's a time of change.
Time of change. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot there, and even when you were talking about some of the things to look out for, it was a little distressing to some to hear
Yeah.
what's,
Yes.
the politics, the global warming, the violence. No one wants to hear of that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we see what's going on in the Middle East and in
Mm,
Ukraine and
yeah.
Russia.
Yeah.
It, have you been able to foresee into what the repercussions of what's going on there as it applies to us? Or
Yes.
is that, yeah,
First of all, I'm gonna say, and I
yeah,
I know people will take positions, but I'm going to
sure,
share
sure,
with you what I know.
yeah, okay,
I can say this, that based around everything that I'm seeing with the Russia-Ukraine fight,
yeah,
I don't know how Ukraine can win, and I think that
yeah,
it's gonna turn into a stalemate. So something will have to be negotiated at some
right,
point in time, because Russia will think that it can outlast Ukraine. They
right,
already they're in that attrition mode right now. So
right,
um and then there will have to be something negotiated, probably, hopefully sooner than later. It's unfortunate that it happens this way, but
yeah,
uh, I don't see a road to victory for either of the
right,
countries. It's
right,
just not going to happen.
right,
Uh, so that is where and I truly do believe that in 2024 something will be proposed by one of the two parties, or maybe both of them, to say,
yeah,
let's just call it a day, because this can't be good for either economy in the long run.
yeah, yeah.
And then
So,
in the Middle East,
yeah,
I think there has to be a reckoning about how we deal with these kinds of things.
yeah,
Um, just, the whole aspect of when they created the United Nations, the number one thing they said was, we have to rule out war as a way to reconcile differences. And it seems as though, unfortunately, we have not learned that lesson yet.
yeah,
And of course, everybody who's fighting will justify it by saying, well, they did this to us and we should do that to them.
yeah,
But in the end, all we have is the destruction in the wake of that. And that's a destruction that will last for decades,
yeah,
if not centuries. So
yeah,
we have to start to think about, we hopefully, and I'm not quite sure, that's the wild card, is that I'm not quite sure what will happen in the Middle East in the end, because of the fact that, there's it's just there's a lot of ancient, and I say ancient, that
yeah,
doesn't mean it goes back to the biblical days. It
yeah.
goes back to 1947.
Right,
Let's be
right,
clear. So
right.
let's not try to make it like, oh, they've always been fighting. That's just not
Yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah,
I hear that all the time, but that's,
yeah.
people don't know their history, unfortunately.
Right, right.
So I don't know how that will turn out in 2024. My hope is that certainly it doesn't turn into a regional conflict, but it has the potential of doing that if it's not wrapped up soon and
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah. So those are some of the caution signals out there,
Yep.
things to be aware of as entrepreneurs, as businessmen. I mean, we're how can we break it down on a daily basis to really thrive and succeed in these fast changing times?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are some of
Yeah.
the simple things we can do?
Yeah, absolutely. The
Yeah.
most important thing, I like to think of, everything begins with us. Everything, all
Yeah.
politics are local, all success is local, all possibilities are local.
Yeah.
That's just something that I believe.
Yeah.
I have a list of some things that everybody needs to do. One of them,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I always
Let's.
say that there's a new world that's emerging, right? So
Yeah.
in order to be in the new world, you really do have to be new people. So one of the greatest challenges that we have right now is there is a trust challenge. Everything from the Boy Scouts to the church to
Right.
government to all,
Yeah.
we don't trust the media. We don't trust anybody. We don't even trust our neighbors as we used to. So what needs to happen is that we have to start using, especially in business,
Yeah.
we have to use trust as our currency. Trust is the
Uh,
new currency.
ah.
In
Okay.
order for us to be able to establish business and establish relationships, the first thing that has to happen is that we have to establish a level of trust. And that comes not just by saying, hey, I'm a trustworthy person, but by saying, I'm going to make all of my materials and what I'm doing as an enterprise, as an entity, transparent, and I'm going to post it online so that people know who we are, what we're doing, who our personnel are. These are the things we have done. This is what we hope to
Right.
do. Transparency, it breeds trust. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you automatically get trust because of your
Yeah.
transparency,
Yeah.
because trust is earned.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but transparency is the first step in that process.
Yeah.
And then you start leaning into the whole idea that, okay, the relationships I'm going to build on going forward have to be based around how I trust that person and how that person trusts me. How do I show up as trust to
Mm.
them, to this other business partner? And so I think transparency is the first step. The other is to build, instead of associates and instead of transactional kinds of experiences, we now have to start talking about relationship. What does relationship look like if we're going to have these trustworthy um, engagements? We have to talk about building a relationship with these people and not,
Yeah.
again, in a transactional way. I think we've been trained into believing that this is all transactional, but we have to talk about friendships and, you know, what we share in common,
Yeah.
all of these things. So trust is the new currency. Absolutely.
I love that concept. I
Yeah.
love that. And Covey wrote The Speed of Trust, and it's touches on that
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
detail. So
Absolutely. Um, Another one is the whole aspect of intending our relationships, which is related to trust.
yeah,
Um, we have to start intending now the associates and the partners that we want to be in partnership with. So that means doing our due diligence, more due diligence than
yeah,
maybe what we used to do,
yeah,
so that when we do partner with them, we know exactly what we're getting. That
right,
doesn't mean that people don't go sideways from time to
right,
time. All of us
right,
do,
right,
but at least you have a reasonable set of expectations. So
right.
that means a little more due diligence so that you can intend the relationship with these other people.
Yes,
And,
yeah,
and and as opposed to letting it happen, because sometimes
right,
we kind of slip into relationships and go,
right.
oh, they're our
Okay,
partners, right? And
right,
well,
right,
they might not share the same values that you have.
right,
They may
right,
not, they may have some challenges you don't know about, but
right.
intending relationships, doing more due diligence absolutely is key.
Okay,
Um, I think one of the most important things is now, because of the population bust,
yeah,
uh, and now Gen Zers will
yeah,
be one of the biggest populations of employees you'll be able to pull from.
true.
You really have to start to ask, what is it that Gen Zers are asking about? And one of the things that Gen Zers absolutely demand
Yeah,
is that they want to know that you are a ethically moral company. That's a big thing for Gen Zers. They don't just sit back and go, "Oh, there's a lot of money involved, so I'll do
huh,
this." They're much more based around your ethical position.
huh,
Do you have a DEI program? How are you to how is your position when it comes to the climate?
Huh.
What actions are you taking when it comes to that? Because they
Yeah.
recognize this is the world that we have to inherit, and I want to be able to work for a company
Right.
that reflects my values. And they're
Yeah.
generally progressive in overall, but simply because they want to live in this world.
Right. Right.
So Gen Zers are like, okay, look, we're a limited group of people, of skilled, talented employees that you need,
Yeah.
and so we want that company to reflect our values. You can't
Huh.
just be, it's all about the money, not to these guys.
Huh.
Back in the 1950s, that was, of course, that
Right.
was fine.
Right.
But in 2024, it will be them saying, we want to make sure that the place that I work at
Yeah.
is has ethics and morals and values that mean something and reflect where I am too. That doesn't mean you have to change your political position,
Yeah.
but it does mean that you need to ask yourself questions about your values, your morals, and
Yeah.
how it's showing up in your work.
Yes. Yeah.
So that is a absolute desire for this and because of the fact that we are in a population bust
Yeah.
and that we don't have the same number of skilled employees that we used to
Right.
have,
Right.
you don't have a choice. You can't be too choosy. You have choices, but you can't be too choosy out there by saying, "Well, we'll get people who think like us." You want to talk about who's available, what are their values, does that reflect our values, and they will ask you the same questions in the interview because they
Yeah.
do have choice. Because
Right.
they have choice, they're gonna interview you. So
Mm.
you need to think about it from that perspective. Um, and despite all of the things that are being said about DEI, like, oh, we need to get
Yeah.
rid of DEI and ESG goals and those kinds of
Yeah.
things, make no mistake.
Yeah.
Those things in a multicultural, diverse world where climate change and how we walk through the earth, those things are crucial
Yes.
to our survival as a people. They won't go away. People are not
Yeah.
going to say, well, now that we're not legally bound by this, we won't do anything about it. That's not going to happen.
Mm.
People are going to say, we want companies that are responsible and
Yeah.
that care about our society, they care about the planet, they care about the world.
Right.
So those things won't go away. So don't, if you're thinking that you're going to throw away your DEI or ESG programs,
Right. Right.
you're don't do it because you'll
Right.
be dusting it off and putting it back in place before
Right.
2024 is done.
Right. Right. Well, tremendous, tremendous insights. So I can't believe this interview has been going so quickly,
Yeah.
and we're about rounding down, and we've just really touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
What are some of the optimistic things, the things that with hopeful expectations we can look for and embrace as we're
Ab-
entering the next couple of years?
Yes. I have the opportunity to work with a couple of the tech giants out there, and I can truly say this.
Yeah.
We have the technology to resolve some of the greatest challenges in human history.
Mm.
We have it right now. It's not about the technology as much as it is the application. So
Yeah.
if we think clearly enough, we can
Yeah.
solve a lot of problems because we now have those tools. Back in the day, we'd say, well, we can't really do that because, it's a problem of scale and,
Yeah.
we don't have the tools. Yes, we do now.
Mm.
So I am absolutely G'd about
Mm.
the whole idea that these tools exist. And I also see another level of leadership that's starting to emerge too,
Oh,
where this leadership, the model that seems to be emerging now, people used to talk about lateral leadership,
uh-huh.
those kinds of things.
Right.
There's another one that's it's called feminine principle leadership,
Mm.
and it's based around the concepts of what were the things that our mothers used to say to us when we
Uh,
were young, be kind to others, share your things, and just be friends.
yeah. Yeah.
So those
Yeah.
are the things, and there was a reason why our mothers used to tell us those things. It was
Yeah.
because they recognized that those were the things that were most effective when you were in a social setting.
Yeah.
So now we're starting to realize that wisdom can really work inside of leadership models, empathy,
Yes.
connectedness,
Yes.
emotional maturity, the things they used to call them soft skills, as if
Yeah.
somehow
Yeah.
they weren't strong enough to lead. Now
Right.
we're realizing that they are the skills to
They are
lead.
the skills. Yeah.
They are the skills. Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
so I see that emerging, and that to me is very hopeful. And I see people really reimagining everything around us. And sometimes we don't
Yeah.
get to that point until there's a crisis.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, when was the last time you remember you said, I'm going to implement some new things when things are going like,
Yes.
level, we
Yeah.
just kind of sit back and go, let's keep things the same that they are, just keep things the same. But
Yes.
when crisis occurs is when we finally entertain new ideas and when we finally get to the place of reimagining things that we never would do otherwise. So I welcome crisis to the point where it gets us in the place of reimagining and rethinking and
Yes.
implementing new tools. And that's what I see in 2024 into
Interesting.
2025. Yeah, that's a great sign. And
Yeah.
I think I know that the popular media wants to doom
Yeah.
and gloom you to death
Yeah. Yeah.
because it sells. I mean, let's
Yeah.
face it, you
Sure.
pay attention when things are crazy.
Yeah.
But on the other side, there is this idea that people are sitting back and saying, we can do better than this.
Yes.
We just haven't been motivated. But now we're properly motivated. So that's a good thing.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that because I think back of when a tornado hit our area and
Mm,
just devastated the place. We had to get federal aid and as a result of it, but it brought out the best in the community. It
yep.
really, really did. I mean,
Yeah.
you saw people coming out at their best, helping one
Every time.
another.
Yeah.
So
That's and
it's
it
a
it
yeah,
it can I've seen that in I'm from Iowa, so we've
yeah,
seen these
okay,
kinds of
right,
disasters
right,
and
yeah,
tornadoes before.
yeah,
And you're right, it brings out this element of connection. You finally
yes,
know who your neighbor is,
yes,
and you
yes,
recognize that we all are in this thing together. I
yeah,
mean, it really crises bring us to a place
strange,
of reimagine. And it's unfortunate that we have to
yeah.
get to that
Get to
place
that
to
point,
get there.
yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, that's why I welcome the time because it can lead, it has the potential to lead to greater developments that we never would have done otherwise.
Life is full of interesting paradoxes, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah, all
And
the time. All the time. It's just the strangeness of the human condition.
it really is. And yet it's been said that with every adversity comes an equal seed of opportunity or greater than, I think, to quote Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just a question of seeing that silver lining and that greater good in every crisis. So,
Yeah.
well, Chet, would you honor us by coming back on our program as a guest? Because we're just touching the surface here of
Yeah,
what you have to offer.
absolutely.
Okay, well,
I'm a futurist, so I
uh,
have to
uh,
I have much
oh,
to talk about
I,
all the
I
time.
I think we would do good to have you on a regular basis just to keep us ahead of the curve, in terms of what's happening and how to prepare and draw out the best outcomes from
Absolutely.
what's going to occur.
Yeah.
And on that note, you got a 2-day event coming up, don't you? Could you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that and how we can learn more about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So we have, I like to kick off the year. Like I said, I don't necessarily
yeah,
do predictions, but I do like
yeah.
to kind of lay out the road ahead.
Right.
On the 10th of January, we will be at Rocky Mountain Public Media in their
Okay.
Masterpiece Theater.
Oh,
This is in
nice.
Denver, Colorado, for those of
Yeah.
you in the area.
Okay.
We'll be doing a kind of a breakdown, like it's almost like it's called AI and You, and it's based around the idea that there is a roadmap through this year that you can travel on, and we're going to try to help you put that roadmap together
Wow.
by first making sure that we dispel all the myths, because there are a
Uh-huh.
lot of myths surrounding
Yeah.
AI and the
Yeah.
technology that's emerging, and then say, here are the things that you can implement that will empower you, empower your community, and empower the world. And then
Wow.
and then on
Exciting.
the 11th, I go with I hang out with my partners over at Aero Intelligent Solutions in their ideation lab. This is an online event, and this is
Okay.
where we doing something very similar. We basically just talk about how to implement AI into your business model so that it makes sense and you don't waste a lot of money throwing millions of dollars out, or hundreds of thousands or tens
Yeah.
of thousands of
Yeah.
dollars out the window because you don't have the right technology. So we're just going to lay out the plan, help you to make that plan, and talk about it from the
Yeah.
context of not just from a business perspective, but as a person living today. What does this look like for you? How does this technology extend your ethics and your
Yeah.
values in the world?
Yeah.
All of those things. We try to tie all of that together because we don't want them to exist in a silo. Business
Right.
over here, you
Right.
as a person over there.
Right.
No,
Right.
they have to be one and the same.
Wonderful. And to learn more, so you can register online, can you, to
You can
partake into that?
register.
Okay.
Yes, we want to suggest that everyone go to universalbasicresources.com.
Okay.
That's all one word, universalbasicresources.com, and you'll get all the information about the event. And we just want you to click and register, especially for the online event with the Aero Intelligence Solutions.
Tremendous. He who is wise will acquire wise knowledge and walk with the wise. So I encourage all of us. I know I'm going to be on it.
Oh,
So
very cool.
would encourage others to join us for
Yes.
that very insightful event. Well, Chet, it's been wonderful. And to our guests who have been with us, so we certainly appreciate you coming in, listening to us. If you like the show, please feel free to like and share and subscribe. This would help us help others, and we greatly appreciate the partnerships that we share with you. And Chet, any final words as we say goodbye to our friends on this podcast?
Absolutely. Just the most important thing is to recognize that this is a time of opportunity. If you
Yeah.
see it, it will exist. If you don't see it, you'll be left with what they keep churning out in mass media, and that is fear, scarcity, and we won't get the best out of this moment. This is a moment that we can meet.
Beautiful. You manifest what you focus on and think.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Beautiful, Chet. You're a beaming light of hope and joy. And I can only really say you got the greatest voice in the world, period. Okay. All right. And you're
Thank
pretty
you,
good.
sir.
You're pretty good in terms of your looks too. So
Thank you,
I know
sir.
you.
Thank you.
So I
As
know.
long as my wife feels that way, I'm good.
Ah,
So.
that's great. So happy wife, happy life. There's another futurist
There you go.
added. Yeah,
So true. So true.
that's great. Okay, well, Chet, God bless you, and we'll be following you for with great interest, and look forward to those dates in January and being part of that. And thank you for imparting your insights with us today.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate you.
Okay, God bless.
You've been listening to the Goal Achievers podcast with professional speaking agent Phil R. Taylor. For free access to all Phil's resources and interviews, please visit myspeakersource.com. Or if you are an event or meeting planner and would like more information on how we can equip you with the perfect speakers to make your event a huge success, please email us at speakers@myspeakersource.com or give us a call at 407-900-2427. This has been a My Speaker Source production. On behalf of Phil R. Taylor and the entire team, we wish you a blessed day as you pursue the achievement of your dreams and goals.
There's a reason for the sunshine sky. There's a reason why I'm feeling so high. Must be the season when that love light shines all around us. So let that feeling grab you deep inside, send you reeling where your love can't hide, and then go stealing through the moonlit nights with your lover. Just let your love flow like a mountain stream, and let your love grow with the smallest of dreams, and let your love show.